Started. I call to order the Lynchburg Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, May 22nd, 2023. The first order of business is the approval of the March 8th, 2023 minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to these minutes? Did everybody have a chance to read over them? Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve them.
Second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll abstain since I was not here. All opposed? Alrighty. That's okay. The next order of business is the following: new business, where we will consider amending section 35.2-72.8 of the City of Lynchburg zoning ordinance, child and adult care centers, by eliminating commercial zoning districts from the standards set forth in this section and modifying area and frontage requirements in Exhibit 7-2 of the zoning ordinance. Rachel, do you
Thank you, Madam Chair. With us today, we have our zoning administrator, Kevin Henry, and he's going to walk you through those changes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. As you had mentioned, daycare amendments is what is on the agenda today. So the purpose of these amendments, these are sort of overarching goals of it. Remove barriers to the growth of daycare businesses within the city. There is a shortage, if you saw in the report, quite a bit of a shortage, actually. And scale back the standards on the smallest of daycares. Those are known as family day homes. That's 12 and less children. Digging a little bit deeper into the purpose, reason this really came up is these standards that you see here in the table that's part of the ordinance. This isn't the entire section of the daycare ordinance, but this is the table that really is giving some of the commercial daycares some concern and some trouble actually opening up here in the city. And if you look here, this last row here is one that is really problematic. So if you're wanting to open up a daycare with more than 20 children in the city in a commercial zoning district, it requires 500 square feet of lot area per person, per student, and then a minimum street frontage of 200 feet. Most of the commercial daycares we have are not operating with less than 20 children. They're wanting more than 20 children, so they really have to meet that criteria in order to operate. These are two examples of variances that we've had fairly recently over the past 2 years because they couldn't meet those aforementioned requirements. The one on the left there is 1200 Fenwick Drive. That is the property to the left there is the Crown Sterling on Ford Ave, to give you all sort of a point of reference there. It's a B3 zoned property, commercial property, huge parking lot, 2 driveway entrances, so good circulation throughout the building. They needed a variance because they didn't have 200 feet of road frontage. They wanted 76 children to take care of there at that facility. They went through, got their variance, and got it approved. The one you see here on the right, they only have 100 feet of frontage. This is on Thompson Drive, right near the hospital. You can see there's several commercial uses all throughout there. They also received approval on their variance for the 100 feet. Now you might think, what's wrong? They go get the variance, whatever, it gets approved, they kind of keep on moving through things. So why that's not really a good solution? Variances are really supposed to be used on situations where the property itself has lost economic utilization because of the regulations that are in place. That is not the case with these properties that I previously showed you. They could have been used for, the one on Thompson Drive was a doctor's office. I can't recall what the one on Fenwick Drive was for. I think it was offices as well there. But they could have easily been restaurants or a medical facility. So they haven't lost the utilization of the property. It's just the regulations have made it difficult to locate a daycare in those particular instances. Variances that are approved for exempting the daycare regulations are ripe to be overturned by circuit court if an aggrieved party appeals. Again, they have to meet what they call a legal hardship, and that hardship has to show that you've lost all value of the property based upon the regulations. And so just because you can't do a daycare there doesn't mean you've lost that economic value of the property. You can certainly do something else. Obviously, none of these were overturned. The one on Thompson Drive had it's an understatement to call it an aggrieved party, but one of the neighbors was very upset about the proposed use. Never went through with appealing it or anything after the Board of Zoning Appeals approved it. But had she gone through that, it probably would have been overturned. It really puts the business operator in sort of this precarious position of, well, I got to apply for a variance. I got to wait 30 days to go before the board. It's not a guarantee that you're going to get the variance. And then you're subject to be potentially overturned in circuit court. So you might say, why did the BZA approve the past 3 variances if it's not really meeting the criteria? All I can tell you is they were given lemons, they made lemonade. They're citizens such as yourself, such as your body, and they realize too that the regulation isn't nice and neat, and they're trying to make a nice situation out of it for these folks. And those are public hearings as well, so they get to hear from the public. But they're really taking a chance, approving stuff like that. And finally, if the requirements in the code are always being exempted, why have the requirement? A variance is not the solution. It sort of is the legal solution for people to sort of jump through, since I don't have the ability to say, yeah, I think this situation is good, we'll just forget about the requirements and approve it. So it has to sort of go through that process. This is one that is sort of here and now before us. They were going to apply for a variance, and they found out the city is potentially changing the regulations. This was actually the 3rd one in 2023 that came to us, prospective daycare, and all 3 couldn't meet the requirements of those standards of either the 500 square feet of land area for the daycare or the 200 feet of road frontage. And I kind of walk you through this one. So this is 115 Wigington Road. It's Zone B1, which would allow for a daycare, but we'll go through the stipulations here. The parcel size is roughly over half an acre, 0.548 acres, or 23,800 square feet. Zoning ordinance requires 500 square feet per student, so they'd be allowed 47 students there. Virginia State Code, and mind you, this isn't quite an apples to apples comparison, but it'll give you a little bit of an idea. They do their measurement based upon building space. So 35 square feet of the building per person, they'd be allowed 116 under Virginia Code regulations for a daycare. So city 47, state 116, so quite a little bit more flexibility. And I know that says occupants, but I guarantee you that there's not double the amount of staff than there is students going there. Then you get down to the street frontage requirement. As you can see there's only 125 feet of street frontage there for Wigington Road. So then that means they're allowed no more than 20 children. So the 47 children goes out the window, and they're at 20 or less. And Virginia State Code doesn't have any requirement for street frontage. So yeah, that's really hampering them. When I tell people these requirements, like, what? Huh? Why? A restaurant could open up in there that has a heck of a lot more traffic in and out of there and not have to go through those same requirements. So the proposal that you all have before you is adjusting section 35.2-72.8. And in particular, it would sort of eliminate the commercial districts from falling into these categories. And this is that first sentence that's in the section, if you look at it, and I've underlined it there. Care centers for children or adults located in residential zoning districts. So we felt that this should really only be applicable to residential areas to help protect neighbors, areas that might not be exactly suitable for daycares, making sure that they have enough space, so to speak, if they were going to operate there. And not necessarily the commercial zoning districts. And secondly, I didn't mention it as much, as it's not as much of an issue, but we realize that The family day home, which is 12 or less children, have to meet these requirements as well. And so we're trying to scale back some of that as well to make it easier for those folks to operate. If they're having more than 12 children, they need a conditional use permit that's got to come to Planning Commission, City Council for approval anyways. I believe that's it. I'll take any questions, though, that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Who is here to speak on behalf of this petition? And if there's somebody that is, please come forward up to the podium, and if you could sign in, there should be a pen and paper there for you to sign your name. Is he representing a group? Yes. So if you're representing a group, you have 10 minutes, and he can specify that he's representing you guys. That's fine. Mhm.
I'm Stanley Cobbs, and I'm here basically, we have a leadership team, and I'm representing them and childcare facilities in Lynchburg.
Okay, thank you.
So actually, what we're looking at with everything, I spoke to Kevin before, so what's going on is actually the amount of footage that's being required is basically putting a barrier in prohibiting us from opening up childcare facilities. I'm also the executive director of Head Start programs, and with the deficit of childcare facilities in this community, and as we try to grow to reduce those numbers and bring those numbers down so we can assist families with bringing more children into the industry, into the childcare field, we're running into barriers. And when I talked to him and he was telling me those numbers, I'm like, how? If the building is capable of holding 150, we're only getting 40, and if you have a rent that's $4,000 a month, you're not going to even be able to cover the rent, let alone provide food, materials, and all that for children to thrive. So as of right now, it's just, if this isn't overturned, then it's just creating more of a barrier to the families in this community, the children, education. It's more systemic in growth than it is in us being able to, offer a safe space for children to grow and thrive in early education. Those numbers are just not giving us what we need, and it's really, then we're having to go outsource outside of the community to try to find spaces outside of the area just to be able to accommodate, which is another problem, because a lot of the families we assist with, they may not have the income. If they don't have the income or they don't have transportation, then that's another barrier with them even trying to get their children to these facilities. So it's just, I think if those numbers could be changed to basically align themselves somewhat with what the state has in place, it would definitely make it a lot easier for businesses to come into the area and to grow, to be able to assist more families in getting those numbers down so children can get into a good quality preschool. Because right now it's just, it's a real hindrance, because again, even with Head Start, we're looking for additional space. We have a waiting list that's growing and growing because there's just no space in the area that we can even place the children. There's no place to even locally that we could even go into and meet the need. So, anything else?
Sure. And you're part of the group that he's representing?
Yes. My name is Misha Gaines, and I actually own and operate a child care center in Campbell County. When speaking with Mr. Cobbs, I became aware of the 126 children in the city of Lynchburg that are looking for child care. They do not, as he said, have transportation to get to Campbell County for child care. So we were looking for an opportunity to actually open a center within the Lynchburg City District. The problem is with this, as he already mentioned, it limits us to a small number of children that wouldn't even cover operating expense. Licensing has a requirement as far as square footage for how many children for a building, and licensing comes out and does an inspection before you are ever able to open a child care center, and they define for you how many children you can have in a center. And so we would like for this to be abolished so that just the licensing piece can control that. And as I said, all the child care centers that I'm aware of in Campbell County, Madison Heights, what's that? Amherst, everybody else is operating solely off of state licensing from the Department of Education.
And I actually reached out to Appomattox County, Prince Edward County, Campbell, Bedford, nobody else. They all, as Misha said, they're all using the standards of the state. Because again, a building that holds 145 kids and you get down to 47, then next thing you're down to 20. It's not feasible that we could even, as Misha said, meet even the financial needs of running and operating that type of facility.
And there is a genuine need in Lynchburg City. And I don't even know where you could find that type of size parcel in the city, even if, you know, that size parcel in the city to be able to build a child care center.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the petition? Please sign in, thank you. If you'll sign your name.
My name is Terry Brennan, and I'm a pediatrician in town, and I'm the chairperson of the Early Childhood Care and Education Committee, which was originally started out of Poverty to Progress and now Bridges to Progress. And we're still meeting to try to address the lack of quality early childhood education programs, care, and preschool education, because it's so important for children's school readiness. And I just want to support Mr. Cobb's statement. He's been a member of our committee, and we have a multidisciplinary committee that's been working on this project, and the number of families looking for quality childcare is huge. And it's such an economic drive to have good quality childcare. So we just would like to support Mr. Cobb's statement and your recommendation. Thank you so much.
Terry, could you sign in for me real fast?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Kevin, could you put that slide back up that you had?
This one.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor of the petition? Is this the time that we,
Anybody opposed?
well, I'm just saying, do we bring up the
Yeah.
text that we got? So I think we all received a text, which is the first that I mean, literally, we all sat down. And I'll just read it. It's from Kimberly Dyke Harsley. And her text said, "I support the changing of the ordinance that is blocking daycare centers from being allowed to operate based on footage in front of the facility. We need early child care now in Lynchburg. Thanks." Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the petition? Okay. At this point, the public hearing is closed, and we can ask our questions to Kevin, or?
I just have a question of, a point of information. Do the residents around the daycare, do they need to approve? Are they a part of the process, or?
So on residential ones, yes, but not on commercial, unless there was a rezoning to rezone it to commercial for the daycare. But on residential ones where there's 6 to 12 children, we mail notice to property owners within 200 feet of it. And if anybody is opposed to it, I deny it.
And
And
this
then,
is the variance?
no, this is what we call family day homes. It's 6 to 12 children out of a residence. That's the only time we're notifying neighbors about a potential daycare. And the neighbors essentially have the chance to turn it down. And then if I turn it down, then they can apply to the board, they can apply for a conditional use permit to kind of go through the process to approve it instead of the zoning administrator approving it. But if I don't hear any opposition to it, I can administratively approve it.
Can you put up the previous slide?
I had a question about the variance. Just a little clarification. Can that variance be challenged at any time?
No, so it runs out after 30 days.
Okay.
So they have 30 days after the time it's approved to challenge it. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, and then the second question was, where did the 200 foot, that's a lot of road frontage, where did that come from? Why that's,
It's a lot more than this property has.
sure, yeah.
And I'm thinking along the same line. I think we're assuming that this came from some. So you have to step on it. My question, one, I think this is a great idea. I think we do need to get rid of this. But that being said, what's going on in my mind is there's 2 times a day when parents drop off their kids and pick up their kids. And it can create traffic backups if there's not enough turnaround or parking or space to pick these kids up. Is there something already in place that addresses that, or was that the intent of that 200-foot, whatever it is?
So you're correct. I think that's the intent of the 200 feet, is to sort of allow for, traffic backups, that kind of thing, a little bit of a buffer maybe from adjoining properties. And I couldn't tell you exactly where they pulled the 200 feet from. It's been in the ordinance for a very long time. Yeah, we do have some things in play in the ordinance right now. We have access management standards for driveway cuts, that you can only have 1 driveway per property. There's some separation requirements too from adjoining, like if you wanted to create a new driveway, it has to be so far from another driveway that's already on that road. We have distance requirements, so that kind of slows down the stopping and turning and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think the frontage, the 200 feet is sort of just a arbitrary buffer, if you will, to allow for that.
I noticed if you have 19 children, you only need 100 feet, but if you have 20, you need 200 feet. So that's one of the things about laws that are funny. You get some unfair competition. I think it's a pretty business-friendly move. I think it's helpful for businesses and people who own the property, as well as good for the ability to have more childcare. I think that's a good thing.
I agree.
Look at it favorably myself.
I agree with changing the ordinance, but I don't get where you get that 200 feet. I mean, this property you've got up here now could only have 19 children, right?
Correct. Or 20, I think, at the max, yeah.
No more than 20.
Yeah.
Okay. And go back to the list, I guess that was the last slide. So you're getting rid of any restrictions if they're fewer than 12? Is that-
Correct.
So fewer than 12 children, you don't have a minimum street frontage or area. But 13 to 20, you have to have 100. More than 20. That's okay.
That's just residential areas.
And yes, that would just be in residential areas.
Oh, okay.
Which we felt was important to maintain that because,
Okay,
yeah, to his point about traffic backing up and that kind of thing in a residential area, you want
okay.
a little bit of that
So
buffer.
that's residential, and so what about non-residential?
It wouldn't be applicable.
So-
That whole table wouldn't be applicable.
So any
No,
restrictions?
You have no table for that?
Correct. It would just
Is that no
completely
table
go
or no
away.
change?
Yeah, that first sentence that you see at the top there, That is sort of the introductory sentence to the rest of the section of the code there. I think it's at the end of your report. I have
Right.
the whole section in there. It's like a page and a quarter or so long. But that's the first sentence that's in there. And so by putting in there that bold red underlined area means that the entire section is only applicable to residential uses if the amendment's approved.
So previously, this was applicable to both?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
They would still be subject to state guidelines.
Right.
for
Correct.
Commercial districts, it's just we wouldn't have any additional local
That's right.
requirements.
So the three properties that you pointed out earlier were all in business districts.
They are, yeah. One was downtown in B4, and I believe this one is B1, was up on the screen. I think the other one was B1 as well.
Okay.
So no restrictions other than with the state.
Correct. And a lot of what you see on that, when I have at the end there, the printout of the entire code there, many of those are actually required by state code anyways. They actually match state code. Like there's an outdoor recreation area requirement. It matches the state code.
So is your exhibit 7 to the one with the crossed out and all that, does that bring this into conformance with state code? Is that what this does?
It does. The state doesn't have that table at all, but they have some of those other things that we have listed in there. But yes, it does conform to state code.
Yeah, I guess the summary for me then would be, if you remove them in a commercial situation, then the assumption is that you're going to be dealing with a commercial property that probably has some significant parking, so you're not going to have that buffer. And so what this is, what we've alluded to or even said outright, what you have here for residential is on purpose a little bit more of an obstacle and discouraging, quite frankly, you know, for people in that area because of your traffic concerns and because you're trying to manage that.
Correct.
So that would be a pretty good summary then of where we are on that.
It is, and we honestly don't get many family day homes, the 6 to 12 children out of a residence. It's very rare. I think since I've been zoning administrator since 2015, I've had 3, I think, in the city over whatever that is, 8 years. So we just don't get that many of them, but we have several commercial daycares that have opened up in that time period that particular requirement is a hang up for them. But you're right, there's other requirements in the ordinance. There's buffering requirements for these recreation areas. They have so many parking spaces that they have to have that we're looking at in the ordinance. So there's other things that we're going to be looking at when a daycare opens up to make sure that we're not starting a situation that's going to violate other rules in the ordinance.
And I think the concern too is just in case this ever comes up again would be not just traffic, but noise.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say? Or?
Yeah, so typically in commercial districts, if they're adjoining a residential district, there's a buffer requirement in between.
Oh, that's what you mean, okay.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
So Kevin, those 3 applications that you had this year, these changes would remove the need for those?
So yeah, all 3 would
They'd be in compliance?
rock on and be able to open.
Yeah.
Mhm. Assuming they meet building code
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
and all
of
that
course.
other thing. But yeah, zoning wouldn't be
Yeah.
holding them up.
No,
any
it
longer.
took a while for the light bulb in my head to go off until you clarified the key points being residential zoning districts and that otherwise they're following the state and other regulations. So,
Mhm.
yes.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the petition as it stands.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So thank you very much for all of you guys coming today, and good luck at City Council. Okay, so this is kind of a short meeting. Any other business? We do we have another meeting stuff on the agenda for April the 12th? Yes, great. April the 12th is our next meeting, so if there's no other business, motion to adjourn.
That was a no-brainer.
All in favor?
I'll work on it. I'm just trying to a little bit more distinction.